All right, welcome to what is this, week 7, Liz? Week 7 here of the 2020 season. We got the early game halftime starting to lead into us right now. And, this is an interesting slate of games so far. Some contests not really going as expected. Several have. And I'll start us off with Tilted and Jilted here, Liz. I got to tell you, Texas football is tilting me right now. Matthew Lofton in the chat room. If you are in the chat room, folks, hit that room up. Give me some good emojis. Tell us what you're thinking, what's going on. If you got any start-sit questions, we can get to those. But Matthew Lofton in the chat room says, Andy Dalton needs to be retired before anything gets worse on his record. And shout out to you, Liz. Someone on Twitter pointed out to me that, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I wish one of these teams had Kirk Cousins as his quarterback for the second half, just for fantasy purposes. Houston and Dallas tilting me right now, not showing up to potentially fun fantasy games, not holding up their end of the bargain. 3 total points between those two teams.
Why do you need Kirk Cousins when you got Kyle Allen on the other side? HTTFT, baby. It is happening. We have seen Kyle Allen, by the way, produce against bad football teams. Remember his tilt against Arizona last year. He definitely served up some fantasy goodness, and he's got Terry McLaurin, one of your favorite alpha receivers, ascending as a star in this league. And Antonio Gibson finding the end zone. I mean, I love this. I love this. The NFC East is chef's kiss right now.
Isn't it so nice that, in Washington, there's really only 3 skill position players you care about, right? It's Antonio Gibson, it's Terry McLaurin, and sort of sometimes maybe it's the pride of Lynchburg, Virginia, Logan Thomas, the third player of that group to find the end zone. Just looked like, that was a pretty cool touchdown. Just it really made the Dallas player trying to tackle him look ridiculous, which is, not uncommon for Dallas. These players often look ridiculous on defense. I don't know. My guy, Mike Nolan, I was showing my fiance pictures the other day of he was one of my first partners on TV, doing some shows back at the NFL Network. Love the guy, Mike Nolan, total gem. This is not going well though in Dallas. I have no idea how he survives to the end of the season on this one. We'll see. But you're right. Washington at least is answering the bell here. Many of like I said, they're players that we care about. They're going off. But Liz, what's got you tilted here in the early portion of week 7?
I'm mostly feeling some good tilts. I got to be honest. And also, you're mentioning Mike Nolan. Mike McCarthy, what is up? Jerry Jones, you believed that? He was like a sermon giver, like a revitalized preacher who had been in scandal and then confessed his sins, and we all believed it. No, not all of us, my friends. Look at Matt LaFleur and what he's doing in Green Bay right now. Before we went on, you were talking about Devontae Adams and how we wish he had been healthy all season long. What a gift that would have been. So there's a lot tilting positively for people who've been waiting for some of these players to step up in these matchups. I would say negatively skewing Traquan Smith, where my boy at? No Michael Thomas, no Emmanuel Sanders, and who's leading the charge? Rookie Marquez Callaway. By the way, Emory Hunt, who I profiled in our fantasy community segment on FFL. He totally called this dude, and he deserves all the credit in the world. Incredible hands, good height, out of Tennessee, originally recruited actually as a cornerback. He's leading the Saints receivers in targets and production, already found the end zone, so definitely someone to track moving forward.
Yeah, Marquez Callaway might be a stud, but Emory Hunt is the true stud. I remember that fantasy community section on FFL, and Emory pulls this guy out. It's you're like, hey, who should people keep an eye on, in the Saints offense with Michael Thomas hurt? And he's like, every other hack out there. Oh, Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith, Jared Cook, those guys are all Emory Hunt. No, Marquez Callaway. We love to see it. That's been an interesting game so far. Also, DJ Moore, 2 touchdowns in that contest. Yeah. If you've bought low on him at any point recently, that is a guy. Troy King, another shout out to our fantasy community segment. He mentioned on today's show that DJ Moore is definitely a guy to buy right now. He's paying off big. In the chat room, we've got Tucker tells us that the biggest player, the people tilting him, 2 puke emojis with this one, and I totally get it. Derrick Henry and Chase Claypool, any chance of a fantasy rebound there? Let's jump right into that game because I talked about this game a lot coming into this week. It's a battle of 2 undefeated teams. We like a lot of players on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh. Obviously, Tennessee's offense had been rolling, but there were so many potential mismatches for Pittsburgh on their side of the ball, and really not that many, only a few just for Tennessee to exploit. And so far, it's been totally in Pittsburgh's favor. 24-27 in this game. I think, obviously, from a fantasy angle, the reason that my guy Tucker is tilting about Chase Claypool with 1 catch for -1 yard. Deontay Johnson's back, and he's healthy, and he's being treated as the clear wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh right now. 8 targets, leads the team. 5 catches for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Liz, this is what I think the key point is. Coming off of week 1, Deontay Johnson leads the team in targets, air yards, whatever. A lot of people are like, well, Juju Smith-Schuster can still operate. He's still going to be Ben's guy in the red zone. Both of Johnson's touchdowns have come from within 12 yards in the field. Like, this has been a guy that's been involved in scoring area too. What have you seen in this game?
Well, I think if we want to talk about the wide receivers, I mean, obviously Claypool is a tilt because of the tear that he's been on, but we also haven't seen him produce to the level that he was with Deontay Johnson on the field. So, like, there was a lot of assuming by you, me, and everybody. I think you and I both agreed that Claypool had certainly leapfrogged James Washington and will probably cut into opportunities with Deontay Johnson based on coverage and circumstances, et cetera. So that, you know, is interesting. Also, I mean, Chase Claypool jawing a little bit at Malcolm Butler was interesting. I don't know if you're there yet. James Conner, I think, also added a tilt, right? Like 3 touchdown opportunities, 1 called back, missed a quick throw that was just basically a walk-in opportunity, and then was vultured by Benny Snell. That's like 3 shots at 6 that you missed. So I think there's a little bit of a tilt there. And Juju Smith-Schuster remains a tilt. It is wildly frustrating to know that he's second in team targets with 6. Like, if we're talking about why Juju Smith-Schuster, and I did a deep dive on this at like 1 o'clock in the morning last night because it's 2020 and I'm not going anyplace. So his usage is interesting. It's not like a volume question. It is a lack of the Steelers are not using him, as I think you just alluded to when talking about Deontay Johnson, in plus high value opportunities, right? We talked about last year, his 8 out is 5.0. Like, he's just not seeing anything over 10 yards. When he does, he's efficient, but he isn't getting those opportunities, so he's just not smashing in terms of a stat line.
Yeah, I mean, there's just more value on those outside targets to guys like Johnson, to guys like Chase Claypool. You mentioned it, James Washington, no catches in this one. I think Claypool obviously is one of the top 3 receivers here. But basically my analysis is with all of these guys is when they're healthy, like, yeah, Ben treats Deontay Johnson like the wide receiver 1 when he's healthy. We've seen that through several games now at this point. But all of these guys, I think, will have their moments. Like, at some point, Juju's going to have that type of game. Like, Chase Claypool can make a couple of big plays in the second half and get rolling there. So, like, all of these guys are going to be in starting consideration each week. It's just going to be, like you said, depending on matchup. With Juju, it's just the usage is the worst of these 3 guys, pretty much by far. For Derrick Henry in this game, I mean, this is like the worst for if you have Derrick Henry. You don't want the Titans to be down 24-7. We'll see how involved in the passing game he gets in the second half. Right now, no targets on the day. It's actually been pretty spread out. Only 1 guy, Corey Davis, leads the team with 5 targets, is the only guy to catch more than 1 pass so far.
Can we also just quickly talk about how Tennessee, this isn't because they are not executing, this is because they are not executing on gifts. They have gotten some great breaks, fluky breaks in this game, and yet are having trouble converting. And so the time of possession is one thing, but also, like, just looking at how they haven't really utilized the opportunities. I mean, Corey Davis letting a ball slide through his fingers and then Adam Humphries, like, saving it off the top of Corey Davis's fingertips. Like, situations like that, like, when you're given those gifts, you need to be able to ROI on them.
Yeah, totally. And, like, that's a great point. I wonder with this Titans offense in general, like, they might be, I know I was on our friend Chris Harris's podcast this week, and he called them a high school offense, which is like, whoa, kind of harsh, my guy. But I get his point in that they're so based off play action, motion, everything like that. They do so many heavy formations and then run play action passes off those, and they get down the field with that. But I wonder how effective that's going to be against great defenses that can really get after the passer, that have some good coverage players, obviously, like we're seeing with Pittsburgh this week. Like, if that was your thought coming into this week, you're pretty alarmed and like you feel justified by what you're seeing them getting down so far to Pittsburgh. I wonder if if this might be the type of offense that can absolutely beat up on bad defenses like we've seen to start the year, but then against some better competition, especially better defenses with good pass rushes like Pittsburgh, they might start to fall back to the pack. Got something here from Scott Rio, our guy Scott, said, looks like Odell Beckham could be hurt bad. Do I grab Jarvis Landry or AJ Green off the wire? Well, let me tell you, Beckham's definitely hurt. As you may, that is a very appropriate reaction. You mentioned it, like Beckham hurt, no surprise. Also no surprise, Baker Mayfield continues to not play well. 5 for 10 for 49 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for Baker Mayfield. This should be the type of matchup where he has that rebound game. Kareem Hunt's running the ball pretty well, but obviously Beckham gets hurt on the interception return. He looks like he's already declared out for this game. Looks like he could miss multiple weeks. We'll see what happens there. Jarvis Landry is up to 36 yards on 3 catches, 56 yards on 4 catches for AJ Green, the other player he's talking about here. But I do kind of wonder what the construction of this offense will be, with Rashard Higgins potentially taking more routes from Odell Beckham's spot. Harrison Bryant, the rookie tight end, he made it into the end zone in this one.
Let's talk about the tight ends, because Austin Hooper had an appendicitis. So he's not in. And then I was reading everywhere that, and in our Guru Challenge and in a lot of my tight end premium leagues, I started Bryant ahead of Njoku, who was equally available and a little bit cheaper in DFS, because Njoku's
you played him in the Guru Challenge?
I did. Yeah.
No, I was so close to doing it. God, I'm jealous. You're so smart there. I was this close, and during the show, I pulled him out. What an idiot. Congrats to you.
I had some other, it'll still not work out well for me because something will go sideways elsewhere in the roster. But when you talk about Njoku, everywhere on football Twitter was like, oh, Njoku's the better option, even though basically their routes, run, and snaps are pretty close to 50-50. One's a little bit higher in one category, whatever. But I was like, but Njoku is not happy. Njoku was begged out of a trade. So, I guess we could imagine a scenario where they try to showcase him to get more trade. But it's not a secret that he wants to be traded. They don't need to showcase him. Why don't you see what you got in the younger guy who now needs targets and is the one that you drafted anyway? I think Bryant is an interesting, if you want to look ahead, fantasy spin, look ahead, don't touch OBJ, don't touch this offense if you don't have to. Go find one of these ascendant players in the Saints offense or something, because we don't know what's up with Michael Thomas. He's probably not going to play in week 8 either. So forget dealing with the Browns unless you need a tight end stream, in which case if Hooper continues to miss time, it's appendicitis. People bounce back from that. I remember my mom having it when I was 13 or something. But look at some of the younger pieces, because this team has some questions to answer, and I think they're finding out answers that maybe no one anticipated at the top of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The only thing that I'm interested in with this Browns offense is basically it's so hard to figure out what's the deal with Baker Mayfield. You watch him, he doesn't pass the eye test. Obviously, most advanced metrics, he stinks there too. Guy played legitimately well as a rookie. Was it just all variance that he breaks the touchdown record? Or is it the fact that bringing in Odell Beckham brought him more timing-based routes and he just can't quite mentally get there? He's one of the dumbest quarterbacks ever. Watching him play, it's very stressful. I wonder if taking Beckham out of there will sort of simplify it back to the way it was his rookie year, where just running and gunning. I doubt it. You're probably right. Just avoid this offense altogether. Let's just hit a few start-sit questions before we get out of here. Bob from Facebook wants to know, no choice here. Got to start Chase Edmonds or Josh Kelly. And we've got it's the thinking emoji, but also the crying emoji, which is generally, that's the position you're going to be in when you're kind of down to these two options. I think I would go just in the higher scoring game. Chase Edmonds been getting the receiving work against a beatable defense, or am I getting too cute there? And Kelly is probably the volume play. I know you're not so bought into Justin Jackson against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I hear the Chase Edmonds playing for up until the past week or two, he was the preferred running back in the red area of the field, even if it wasn't on rushing opportunities, right? So it makes sense chasing points, Seattle. But now that we've seen Christian Kirk kind of turn it on, is all of that going to be available? You would imagine with an over/under so high in this game that could be the case. However, when I think about touchdown potential, I just think about Joshua Kelly. I cannot Anthony Lynn was a running back. He still drafted Kelly this year, and you made this point after week 1, talked about how they needed Kelly near the goal line, how he succeeded near the goal line. Justin Jackson is not 100%, and Austin Eckler is not like ready to come back yet. They need to keep Justin Jackson healthy. And I think that means the exposure near the goal line is going to go towards Kelly, and I like the matchup, so I'm just imagining that probably Kelly's going to get the touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's really reasonable, especially obviously against a beatable defense. We expect, I think Herbert could go crazy in this spot, give the Chargers a good lead. The Chargers are just a much better team than Jacksonville, much better team than their record indicates. So I think you talked me out of it there. I think you go Kelly there as a bit more of a safer play. But that's going to do it for the early game portion of our halftime show here. Keep it locked in to FFL next week. We're going to be having a fun show. It's always great. It's always great to hang out with you, Liz, and talk through some of these games, talk through what's tilting us. Good luck to all of your teams in the second half and the rest of week 7.